Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Art 192, Photoshop/digital imaging for the fall semester of 2021. Today, I'm going to work on lesson 5, which are quick fixes in Photoshop. And this lesson will go pretty quickly. I'm pretty sure that it will. The first one, let's go ahead and tackle the first one. Getting rid of red eye. So if we look at the finished version over here on the right, you can see that she has, when the flash in your camera goes off, this is usually the result, not very appealing. If I come over here to the left one though, we zoom in a bit, see her eyes, this is the finished version where it's gone. So I'm going to go ahead over here and let's get rid of it. We'll zoom in a little bit. And there's a nifty little tool that we have. It's underneath the spot healing brush and it's red eye tool. You'll notice there's a couple of settings at the very top. We can change the pupil size to 50%, darken amount 25%. So we can go with a quick, just click and see the results. And they're pretty astounding. That's it. I just click the mouse with the left mouse button and it fixes it perfectly in her instance. Really, really nice. We're done. So that's to get rid of red eye. It's a little quick tool right underneath at the very bottom here, underneath the spot healing brush tool. Okay, so that's the first. So I'll get rid of these two. And let's see. Let's go to the next one. So I'm going to go to, not my piece. Let's go ahead and go to the Japanese garden. So this is the start file. Let me go ahead and go to Window, Arrange to Up vertically. So we can see the before and the after. What they wanted us to do is to get rid of the rock. And they didn't do such a hot job. But again, there have been improvements in this feature. So let's see what we can do today. First thing that I want to do, which I didn't do with the red eye, is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a copy of our background image first and turn it off. Now what I'm going to do is we're going to come over here and I'm going to make a selection and we're going to use ContentAware Fill. Now, this generally can work pretty well, sometimes not, but what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the lasso tool. So this is one of those situations where we don't need to be very accurate. So I'll click and drag around, and I'm also going to include the reflection here. And go back to the start and make sure that I have this rock and its reflection selected. Now what I want to do is I'm going to go to, let's see, I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to, I got to remember where it is. I think it's under Edit. Yeah, it's under here. It's under the Edit menu, and it's ContentAware Fill. So what it does is it takes the surrounding area and tries to simulate what's around it and filling up in the gap. When you do that, a little ancillary program pops up, and we can see here's a preview of what it's going to look like here. Okay, and that's not half bad. If we look at that, it actually looks better than what they have. Notice how this is carved way out. If we want, we can do is I can come back over here and I can get rid of some of this that I don't want it to fill. I don't want any of this to be used in its calculations of how it's going to fill. So if I get rid of all of this, let's see what results we get. In some instances, it will work in a heartbeat. In other instances, it takes a little bit of work. Now we can come back over here and let's look at the preview again and see if it looks a little bit better. I really don't see much of a change, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. What I can do, I'm curious to see what happened. I'm going to cancel this. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove some of the selection. So to do that, I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key on the PC. And I'm going to carve some of this out here, right here. Just take some of that away. So I have less of the rock over here and less of the little shoreline here. So what I can do is I'll come back again and I'll go to Edit. And I'm going to go to ContentAware Fill again and see if I get just a little bit better results. Not too bad. It's better than, again, it's better than what they have. But I'm going to go ahead again and I'm going to carve away a whole bunch of what they have, what may be used to fill in, because it's taking pixels from its surrounding and then it's artificially kind of, it's generating an artificial fill here. Hopefully it looks pretty seamless. You can see how it updated and it made a little bit of a change. That's not half bad. We could come in, I'll go ahead and I'll click OK. And what it does when you do that, I'm going to deselect. It's not bad. It's better than their solution, but you can see what it does is it actually creates an image on that little selection and puts it on the top. Okay. So if I want, I can combine these two. And I can also come back later on and I can use the clone stamp tool or any number of my other tools and come back and fill in and make this look a little bit better. It's a little bit blurry down here, but we could come back and we can fix that. And again, we could do that by also turning off these. We can come back and turn on the original one. And I could come back and let's say if I wanted to take all of this area down here, let's take all of this. I'm just curious to see how this works. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit Command J to make a copy of that. Okay. Now let's turn these others back on. And let's turn this off. And it really didn't make much of a change there. Let's turn the rest of these off and let's see what I have here. Yeah, that didn't do a whole lot. So I'll turn that off and I'm going to throw it away. But you get the idea. We got that, which is what it's replaced. And you can see that it fits on top. Now, if you want to combine these two together, there's two ways of doing it. And I have a preferred way of doing it. I'm going to hold down the Command key and I'm going to click both of these. Control key if you're on the PC. I'm going to hold down both and click and select both of these layers. What I can do is I can hit Command E and that joins them together. So now they've been merged into one. My choice is a little bit different though. I like keeping these in their original form, but now also creating another layer on top of it that combines them. To do that, you have to hold down the Shift, the Option or Alt key, the Command or the Control key, and hit E. And you can see it combined them, but I also have these down here in their original form. It didn't just simply merge them, it merged them, but it left the originals intact. So that's one of the other things that we can do on here is use ContentAware Fill. So I'll go ahead and I'll close both of these. And I'm going to come back again and let's pick the next one. Let's use the glass start. And I'm going to go to Window and Arrange. And I want two up vertically so that I see both the beginning and the end. So this one should be the end. Yeah, and you can see that the background is sharp and crisp and in focus, and so is the foreground. If we look at the start file, with the beach right now is in focus, but the glass is out of focus. And I have, so the one beneath it, the glass is in focus, but the beach is out of focus. So if I want both of them in focus, I have to do the following. It's a two-step process. I have to select both of the layers. So I can hold down the Command or the Shift key and select them both. You can see that they have a background, which is nothing. It's just blank layer. Now with both of these, because you can see that they're not aligned, I need to make sure that they are in fact aligned with one another. So to do that, I go to Edit, and I come down here and it says Auto Align Layers. So I'll do that, and I'll just leave it to auto for the projection. Click OK. And now watch what happens when I toggle them on and off. They match perfectly. And especially when I turn them on and off, you can see that in one photo, the glass is in focus, and in the other, the background is focused, and I want to merge these two. So now I leave them both selected, and I come up to Edit. Now what I want to do is I want to auto blend layers. And again, I'm just going to use stacked images. Later on, we will do the panorama, and it does an excellent job of that. But I'm going to click OK. Click OK. So there we go. So now it does, if I turn this off, you can see what it's done. If we look in the layers panel, it's created two different layers here that it's taken the original layers and it's created what is called a layer mask, so that it's working on it and it's picking only the elements that it knows intuitively how it's been programmed, what we want. And now we have a collapsed or flattened version of it, where now the beach is in focus as well as the glass itself. Very nice feature. So you're not limited to two layers or two, you can have 3, 4, 5. It depends. And this would be an instance where you wanted a really crisp, clean shot, and you'd have a narrow depth of field or a shallow depth of field in one image, and the same with the other. You have two separate images, that were taken on with a tripod so that the camera is steady. And then you can go ahead and you can merge those two layers and it will automatically blend them together. Very nice. It's not something that I have used that much, except to demonstrate to you, but the examples that I've seen and used by demonstrations look really, really good. So I can see there would be good instances that could be used. So I'll go ahead and I'm going to get rid of these now. And I'm going to come back again up here. No. I want, let's see here. Oh, okay. Let's do the aigrette. So I'll select the aigrette and I'm going to go to Window and I'm going to go to Arrange. And I want it to be 2 up vertically. So there we go. So let me zoom out of each of these so you can see what's going on. So what we're doing here is we're picking and we're isolating parts of the image and keeping them in focus and blurring others. If we look at the final one to the right, you can see that the area surrounding the aigrette is slightly blurred. And if we look at the start file, the entire image is in focus. So if we don't want all of it in focus, we only want part of it in focus. There are several tools that allow us to do that. So let me go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go up to Filter, and I'm going to go to Blur Gallery. And what I want in this particular instance is we're going to use the iris blur. Okay, now I have the wrong file selected, so I'm going to cancel that. Make sure that I have the start file selected, and let's go back again. So I'm going to go back to Filter. I'm going to go back to Blur Gallery, and I'm going to go to Iris Blur. It's worth what your while checking out the other blur tools that can be really effective in creating whatever kind of aesthetic you're going for. You'll notice that there's a widget here that surrounds the image. It's this oval. We can go ahead and we can rotate, or we can change its size. We can also move it around. Now, any of the image that's contained within that oval will remain in focus. But then you can also see that there are these little dots or nodes inside that determine from, anything else that lies outside of that ring will be unblurred. And then this is the fall off, that from that ring all the way to here, it's gradually gets more in focus. Well, if I want it to be a little bit, more abrupt in its change, and I also want this to be a little bit narrower, I can do that and move that up. I can do that. So you can see that the aigrette now is in focus, and anything that lies outside of this ring will be out of focus. And then when you roll over the center of it, you'll see this interior ring. I can control how much or how little blur occurs. If I really want it blurred, I can move this all the way around. And if I want just a little bit of a blur, I can do that and drag the mouse back. So that's the next one. They're really quick fixes. As I mentioned, this is the iris blur, but in that group of blur settings, check out some of the others. And when you're done and you're happy with it, just click OK, and that's it. Now, this is a permanent change. Anytime we use these filters, these are destructive changes to this. There is a workaround that we will get to in a later exercise, or I will show you later in the semester, but for right now, just assume that these are permanent. So if you want to make sure that you have your original intact, you do what I said that you need to do. You can go back and make sure that you make a copy of the image first, and then go ahead and blur it. And then if you don't like it, you can always go back to your original. Okay, so that's the next one. We'll get rid of those. I'm not going to save that. So the next one are columns. You'll notice at the start file, the columns are distorted due to the lens that they use. It's lens distortion. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go back to Window, and I'm going to go to Arrange, and make sure that I go 2 up vertically so we can see the before and after. And you'll notice that in the after version, the columns are not perfectly straight, but they're much straighter. Now, if you prefer the distorted look, then keep it. But if you want to try to get rid of that lens distortion, then we have a tool for that. So I'm going to make sure that I have that image selected, and I'm going to go to Filter, and let me go down here, see where we go. It's going to be under Render, and it's going to be, hold on. Nope, it's not going to be there. It's under Distort. sorry. I want, I can't remember myself which one it is. It's other, because there's a bunch of these here. No, lens correction is what I want. It was up here. My mistake. So I'll go to lens correction. That's what I want. And it brings up a little ancillary application. We can go to autocorrect or we can select custom. I'll select custom here instead. And now what we want to do is settings are set to default. But what I can do, you can see it's still pretty rounded, is I can move this like so. And you can see that it straightens it considerably. So I've moved the distortion by sliding it all the way to the right. Now, what you also probably want to select by default is make sure that the vignette is taken care of and that it expands and the image to take care of the corners that would occur. You can also transform the vertical perspective and the horizontal as well. So as you can see, I can really begin to distort these. That's the horizontal one. I'll go back to 0. Get rid of that. And here's the vertical one that will tilt it forwards or backwards. So again, I'm going to get rid of that. So that's another thing that we can do. You can also affect the scale of the image. And this is what it's doing. It's getting rid of that distortion. And by default, it fills in those corners. So that's really kind of nice. That's all there is to that. Again, a very quick fix for lens distortion. So I'll go ahead and I'll click OK. You can see it's all done. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove these two. Save that. And let's go back. And now we're going to use the bridge. So I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to go to Window, Arrange, 2 up vertically. And you can see in the start file, we have 2 images. We have an image of a train and we have the image of the bridge. And I'm not going through a beautiful forest here. The image of the train does not fit the perspective of the background image. It will not fit on the train tracks. In the final image, you can see that the train fits on the train tracks in perspective quite nicely. Well, this is a 2-step process as well. So I'm going to make sure that the train image is selected. And you'll notice that it is on a separate layer. In order for this to work, it has to be on a separate layer. So with it selected, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here a little bit. And I'm also going to I'm going to switch back the tabs. It's helpful if I see this a little bit larger, see what I'm doing. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to Edit, and I want to go to Perspective Warp. And as I said, it's a 2-step process. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to click and drag like so. And then I'm going to click here. And what I want to do is I'm going to try and match the perspective of our train. So here I have the front and here I have the back, like so. I'm clicking on the little buttons on each of the corners and I'm trying to match the perspective of the train. It might be easier if I were to go, I think that looks pretty good here. I could use the stack here. So let's go back down here like so. Actually try to match the wheels, I think, down at the bottom. That might work a little bit better for us. So now that I have the perspective of the train fixed here, using this little widget and making sure that the buttons on each corner match the train, I can now, rather than select layout, I can select warp. And now I can go ahead and I can move this down like so, move this down like so. You can see as I'm manipulating each of the corners, I'm getting the train to fit. And again, it's an optical thing. It's not something that is chiseled in stone, as it were. And that looks like a pretty good fit. And if it isn't, just undo it and come back. And now it looks like the train is sitting on the railroad tracks. Pretty cool, very nice. It's not, again, it's not that often that you would use that, but you would use it all the time if you had to fit automobiles into streets, and the perspective of the street and the cars were slightly off. That would work very nicely for that. So that's your perspective warp. So that's the bulk of them. There are a couple more that we're going to do, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close a bunch of these. I'm going to close this one. And the last one, let me go ahead and I'm going to save this. This is one of my own pieces that I was tinkering with before. And I should have saved it ahead of time, and I didn't. My apologies. So Voyager 2, and I'll name it my Photoshop file. I'm going to save it on the desktop. And I'll go ahead and close it. And I'm going to close the other one. So I have none that are selected here. What I'm going to do, because what they've done is they've taken about 4 different photographs and put them inside a folder for us inside the lessons. And we're going to go ahead over here and go at the file. And what I want to do is I want to automate. So we're going to use an automate feature. And what I want to do is I want to do a photo merge is what I'm going to do. So if I select that, what I can do is I can now browse my files. So I'll go to browse, and I need to find the lessons. So I have a lot of stuff on my desktop here. So it should be PS down here. Let's look at the names. There we go. Here's my Photoshop Lessons 2020. And now what I need to do is I need to look at lesson 5. And inside are the files for the panoramic view. I want to go ahead and open all of those files. Okay. So select that one, hold down the Shift key and select number 4. And now it's been added. Again, just use auto, and you can use these. I want to use these files. The next thing that you want to do before this works is you want to make sure that you blend the images together, and it will do a very good job of it. But you also want it to remove the vignettes. The vignettes, if you're not familiar with it, is oftentimes the corners of the photograph will darken. If you want to leave vignettes in, you can, but when you're merging all of these together, you don't want them. So I want to remove the vignettes. Also, if there's any geometric distortion, it will automatically remove that. And then if there's holes in the corners or anywhere in the merged photograph, it will use the ContentAware Fill to fill any transparent areas. And that's it. We've selected the photos that we want. We go ahead and we just check these 4 buttons along the bottom, leave auto, the auto setting for the layout, and I click OK. And it opens them, and it does its magic, and it merges them all, and it creates layer masks for each one, and it will arrange them accordingly. And you can see that when we're done, it filled these corners. It brought them together beautifully. So now what I can do is, here's the finished merged image. I can deselect. And now what I want to do is, you can see that the what's happened here is that our horizon here, or landscape, is tilted a little bit. Well, I want to correct that. So what I can do is I can use the crop tool. And what I'll do is I'm going to straighten it. So I just click here, and I'm going to click along the bottom and click across like so to straighten it. And it's going to crop part of our image off. But again, if you remember to uncheck the delete crop pixels, then we're good to go. And there you go. In a heartbeat, we've created a panoramic image that was constructed of 4 separate images. And if I turn this off, you can see that each of the remaining images, if I take that one, that, these are all the pieces that it put together. It's pretty amazing how it does it. And they've improved this over the years. It's been around for quite a while in Photoshop, but periodically they've improved it. They've made significant changes to it, and it does a pretty amazing job. If you were to zoom in on this, there might be a few artifacts that you would want to get rid of, but you could use a spot healing brush, or you could also use underneath here, you could use the ContentAware move, or you could use the patch tool, or you could go back and you could use the clone stamp tool, any one of these, to make the minor fixes that are done. That's it for today. We've gone through all of these quick fixes. And as I said, the quick fixes, it's done in what, a half an hour, all of those. And they work really, really beautifully. With a panoramic view, or the panoramic tools, the way that it does it is that you don't have to be that careful when you make your photographs. When you take your photographs, you can use a handheld camera. It doesn't have to be on a tripod. Okay, and it, you want to try to get it as straight and smooth as possible. But if your camera is turned a little bit, it's not going to be a big deal. The only thing that you want to make sure of is that there's adequate overlap between each of them, and then it will stitch them together perfectly. If you try to butt them up against one another, it's not going to know where to blend them. So just make sure that there's adequate overlap for each of them, and then you'll be set to go. So that is it. The only thing that I want to touch base on with all of you is make sure that you are working on your digital postcard, combining at least four images together, or you're doing the selfie photo bomb assignment. Do any of you have any questions about that while we're here today? No? Okay, let me pause my recording because I know that I put a so again, the postcard assignment, or the selfie photo bomb, will be due September 29th. So there's plenty of time to work on it. You'll be responsible for collecting your own images, or you can use images from the internet. It's as long as the resolution is high enough. That's all I care about. And that's it. We will continue to work on more lessons. Just to let you know, before I forget, next Monday, I will cancel our webinar, so we won't meet for another week. Okay, and I will work on the next lesson. We're going to start working on typography, and that will be lesson 7. We're going to zip through these lessons here, and all the while we're doing the lessons, and you will be working on additional assignments. So that's it. If there aren't any questions, that's all for today. Okay, so you guys are free to leave. And I'll say goodbye, and I will post this online in just a few minutes. Okie doke. No questions from anybody? No? Okay, then I'll say goodbye. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording of this and see you guys next week. Continue to work on lessons and continue to work on the assignment.